Keir Starmer faces red wall revolt to reform if anti-Brexit rebels defy Starmer by voting to rejoin the customs union, and watching the party that won a massive majority potentially tear itself apart over the exact same issue that destroyed them in 2019 is like watching someone step on the same rake twice expecting different results. Welcome back to UK Political Insight, and today we're unpacking the looming Brexit civil war within Labour, why veteran Eurosceptic MP Graham Stringer is warning that defying Starmer risks handing Reform UK swathes of Leave voting seats, and whether the Prime Minister can hold his party together when dozens of MPs are ready to back Liberal Democrat amendments that would fundamentally betray the Brexit voters who lent Labour their support. I'm bringing you multiple videos today because watching Labour potentially implode over Europe again is political déjà vu of the highest order, and we're here to break down every angle of this developing crisis. So let's dive into why the Lib Dems are forcing a vote on customs union membership, which Labour MPs are ready to rebel, and whether Starmer's about to learn the hard way that you can't please both Remainers in urban seats and Leavers in the red wall without one group feeling utterly betrayed. Right, so the setup here is absolutely loaded with political dynamite. The Liberal Democrats, led by Ed Davey, have been pushing to force the UK to rejoin the customs union. Their 10-minute rule bill last month passed by the narrowest possible margin after 13 Labour MPs backed it, only 3 voted against, and the Deputy Speaker had to use the casting vote. That's already embarrassing for Starmer because it shows significant Labour support for reversing a key Brexit pillar. But it was only advisory legislation, so the immediate damage was limited to optics. Now the Lib Dems are going nuclear. They're planning to table an amendment to Starmer's own EU reset bill that would place a legal duty on the Prime Minister to begin customs union negotiations, not advisory. Actual legal obligation. This isn't symbolic posturing anymore. This is attempting to force government policy through parliamentary rebellion. And Graham Stringer, Labour's lone Brexit-backing MP, is warning that if this passes, Labour risks losing seats to Reform UK across the Leave-supporting red wall. Stringer's point about trust is absolutely crucial. He says what he sees in his mailbox from people who voted Leave in 2016 is that this is about trust. Those voters lent Labour their support, often for the first time in generations, based partly on Starmer's manifesto pledge not to rejoin the single market or customs union. If Labour MPs now vote to force customs union negotiations, those voters will feel betrayed. Not disappointed, not concerned. Betrayed. And betrayed voters don't give you second chances. They go to whoever promises to actually deliver what you claim to stand for. The political dynamics here are fascinating and terrifying for Labour. 13 MPs backed the Lib Dem bill last time, including 3 representing Brexit voting constituencies. Those 3 are playing with fire because their voters chose Leave and they're now supporting Remain policies. That's electoral suicide unless they're banking on those voters having forgotten or forgiven, which seems spectacularly optimistic. The wider 13 are presumably representing Remain heavy seats where supporting customs union membership is politically safer, but they're still defying their party's manifesto and potentially triggering a crisis. The EU reset bill that Starmer's bringing forward is being dubbed the Brexit betrayal bill by Eurosceptics, which tells you everything about how it's being received by Leave supporters. The bill would create mechanisms for selective regulatory alignment with the EU, allowing Britain to influence, agree to, and implement future EU rules rather than having them apply automatically. That sounds like giving Britain input, but in practice, it means voluntarily accepting EU regulations, which is exactly what Brexit was supposed to end. Critics warned the legislation could remove the right for MPs to vote on regulations and directives from Brussels, which would be genuinely outrageous. If we're accepting EU rules without parliamentary votes, that's not sovereignty, that's subordination. We'd be rule takers without even the fig leaf of democratic oversight. That's arguably worse than membership, because at least members can vote on rules in European institutions. This would be accepting rules we don't vote on and our parliament doesn't approve. It's the worst of all worlds. Stringer's warning to number 10 is blunt and correct. If we are to stand any chance of winning the next election, we mustn't betray Leave voters. That's the political calculation stripped to essentials. Labour won a large majority, but it's built on a coalition including Leave voters in the red wall who switched from Conservative or didn't vote before. Those voters are already wobbly given Labour's performance. Betraying them on Brexit would send them straight to Reform UK, and polling shows exactly that happening. The Lib Dems planning to table amendments to Labour's own legislation is politically brilliant and utterly destructive. They're forcing Labour MPs to choose between party loyalty and their personal Brexit positions. Remainers who genuinely believe customs union membership is right policy face pressure to vote for amendments, even if it defies Starmer. Leavers who support the manifesto pledge face fury from constituents in Remain seats if they vote against. It's a wedge issue designed to split Labour, and it's working. Ed Davey, accusing Starmer of tinkering around the edges with his EU reset bill, is positioning Lib Dems as the true Remain party willing to actually reverse Brexit rather than just align closely. His statement that Lib Dems stand ready to work with Labour MPs and others to force the government to change course is an explicit invitation to rebel. He's offering political cover and coalition to any Labour MP willing to defy their leadership on Europe. That's opposition parties doing what they should, exploiting government divisions, but it's devastating for Labour unity. The manifesto commitment not to rejoin single market or customs union is the anchor Starmer keeps citing. He campaigned on it, won on it, and reversing would be manifest betrayal of voters. But Health Secretary Streeting and Deputy Prime Minister Lammy have both suggested rejoining customs union is possible. Former Labour leader Lord Kinnock and Andy Burnham have supported rejoining the EU entirely. When senior figures are publicly contradicting manifesto commitments, that signals deep internal division and emboldens rebels to think defying leadership is acceptable. The fact that Labour MPs haven't been spoken to by whips about the Lib Dem push is either spectacular complacency or deliberate avoidance. If whips aren't preparing MPs for a major vote on Brexit policy, that suggests either they don't think it'll happen or they're afraid of the answers they'd get if they started asking where MPs stand. Neither option is reassuring. Governments need to whip controversial votes carefully, and silence suggests dysfunction. Starmer will likely take a tough stance if amendments get tabled, the Labour source saying they want better EU relations as a sovereign nation outside the EU with manifesto red lines shows the official line. But whether MPs follow that line is the question. Starmer suspended 7 MPs over 2 child benefit cap votes and removed others over welfare reform. He's shown willingness to discipline rebels, but suspending dozens over customs union votes would be politically catastrophic, showing massive internal division on defining issue. The comparison to 2019 Brexit wars is apt and terrifying for Labour. That's when the party tore itself apart over second referendum positioning, hemorrhaged Leave voters to Conservatives, and suffered worst defeat since 1935. Reopening those wounds risks similar disaster. Polling expert Matt Galley warns the public's priorities are cost of living and immigration, with little appetite for Brexit culture wars. Forcing those wars anyway would be self-destructive, political malpractice. The Labour movement for Europe claiming support from around 120 MPs is the really scary number for Starmer. If 120 of his MPs genuinely support closer EU integration, including customs union, that's approaching half his parliamentary party. You cannot govern effectively when half your MPs disagree with fundamental policy. The potential for rebellion isn't fringe troublemakers, it's a substantial bloc that could cause serious damage. Reform's positioning here is perfect for them. Farage noting polling shows growing appetite for rejoining EU in Scotland, Wales, and London, all with May elections coming, while also knowing Labour could lose 38 Leave-supporting seats to Reform, means he can campaign as Brexit's true defender while Labour tears itself apart. Every Labour MP voting for customs union amendments gives Reform ammunition to say Labour betrayed Leave voters, and only Reform will deliver real Brexit. The seat projections are devastating for Labour, losing 38 pro-EU seats to Reform, 32 to SNP, 11 to Conservatives, and 5 to Greens shows vulnerability across the board. The coalition that won them the election is fracturing along multiple fault lines, Brexit being one of the deepest. If they're seen as betraying Leave voters, red wall seats flip to Reform. If they're seen as not going far enough on EU rapprochement, urban Remain seats go Lib Dem or Breen. There's no position that satisfies everyone. Stringer representing the Eurosceptic position within Labour is significant because he's not a right-winger or Tory plant. He's long-serving Labour from a Leave voting area who understands his constituents' priorities. When he warns about losing seats to Reform, that's not speculation. That's frontline MP assessment of voter sentiment. Ignoring that warning would be arrogant and stupid, but Labour might do it anyway because the Remain pressure within the party is intense. The trust issue Stringer highlights is fundamental. Politics requires voters to believe promises at least somewhat. When parties manifestly break major commitments, trust evaporates and doesn't return easily. Labour promised not to rejoin customs union. If MPs vote to force exactly that, voters who believe that promise will feel conned, and conned voters become vengeful voters who actively campaign against you rather than just not voting for you. The 3 MPs representing Brexit constituencies that backed the Lib Dem bill last time are particularly vulnerable. Their voters chose Leave. Their voting Remain on behalf of those voters. That's democratic representation failure. Unless those MPs can convince constituents they know better, which is patronizing and unlikely to work, they're facing serious electoral consequences. Reform will target those seats mercilessly, and voters will be receptive to messages about betrayal. Starmer's position that dynamic alignment is in national interest while maintaining we won't rejoin customs union is trying to have it both ways. You can't have comprehensive single market alignment without customs union because they're